Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, the Belarusian military in high alert, and we'll see what are they up to. So, as you know, the Russians are using Belarus's territory to attack Ukraine with missiles or airplanes, aircraft taking off and launching all kind of attacks from the territory of Belarus. The Ukrainians did not hit Belarus yet, and it's kind of like a weasel move, I would say, coming from the Russians, because you can't expect not to be hit or shot at from to the location where you shoot at the other guy. So the Belarusians and the Russians think that, hey, you should not shoot within Belarus. Yeah, okay, but you shoot from the Belarus in my country, so what's that? Anyway, this is a controlled war, as I said, and you say, well, it wouldn't make sense to shoot at the Belarus, and then Belarus would say, okay, take it as this is an attack, so we're going to retaliate and we're going to do this. Well, if you do that, I'm pretty sure that NATO then will have to intervene somehow, or at least Poland or others. And it seems like the Western guys do not want to get to that point. That's why they tell, I'm assuming, the Ukrainians, hey, do not hit inside Belarus. Now, this article comes from Reuters from today, 13th of December 2022. Belarus puts southern military unit on alert in large-scale readiness exercise. Now, southern unit because that's where the border with Ukraine is, in the southern of Belarus. Russia's close ally, Belarus, announced a snap military inspection on Tuesday, including increased combat readiness in the south of the country, the latest in a burst of exercises that have prompted concern from neighboring Ukraine. A flurry of Belarusian military action, including a counter-terrorism exercise last week, has kept Ukraine guessing about the Minsk intentions and raised concerns in Kiev that it might join the war on Russian side. I can discuss that because I don't think Lukashenko will do that. You say, well, maybe Putin will make him do that. If they wanted, they would have done it at the beginning of the war, and not only. And if you remember, there were Russian units coming from Belarus towards Kiev, but no Belarusian army joined. It doesn't mean that it can't change in the future, but I think it's highly unlikely, but not impossible. Russia and Belarus are formally part of a union state, end quote, and are closely allied economically and militarily. In a video statement published by the Belarus Defense Ministry, Alexander Wolfowitz, State Secretary of the Security Council, said that checks would encompass practically all Belarus's operational commands, but initially units that would be the first to respond to any escalation, and I'm quoting, either on the Belarus border or within the country, end quote. Obviously, they have to be ready for any, take any measures of precautionary measures to any internal destabilizing moves, a little spontaneous demonstration and things like this, and then the outsiders push buttons and the little cells, dormant cells, will join and organize. As part of this, one military unit had been given a mission to secure, and I'm quoting, a target on the southern border, end quote, he said, adding that the tasks stemmed from analysis of what Russia terms its special military operation in Ukraine. Belarus has said it will not enter the war in Ukraine, but President Alexander Lukashenko allowed Russia to invade northern Ukraine from Belarusian territory on February 24, and in October ordered troops to deploy with Russian forces near the Ukrainian border. Western military analysts says Belarus's small army lacks the strength and combat experience to make a decisive difference. But the risk that it might intervene from the north is a burdensome distraction for Ukraine as it focuses on fighting Russian forces in the south and east. I think that's all what it is. They just keep the Ukrainian guessing and busy and keep Ukrainian forces stuck over there, and the Russians are still maneuvering back and forth. Oh my God, more troops come to Ukraine. Belarus. Oh my God, they brought 3 airplanes. Oh, things like this. And then the Ukrainians bring troops and keep troops over there instead of helping on that side. I think that's what actually that is. The Belarusian Defense Ministry has said earlier that as part of the exercise announced on Tuesday, troops would have to move quickly to designated areas and set up bridge crossing over the Neman and Berezina rivers in western and eastern Belarus. During this period, it is planned to move military equipment and personnel and to temporarily restrict the movement of citizens' transport along certain public roads and sections of terrain, it said. Now, separately, Andrei Lukianovich, previously Deputy Commander of Air Forces, was promoted to take charge of the Air Force and Air Defense units, the state, blah, 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 blah. Well, the thing is, they say, well, they lack experience. How do you get experience? How do you gain experience? By fighting. So maybe this is one way to do it. Now, I think that the Russians are just using the territory. I don't think they will involve Belarus. They can't pressure. I mean, you could say, well, they can because they are occupying the territory. Well, it's not that easy. It's more complicated. Why? You don't look at the first move, like in chess, or second move, or you have to plan ahead and look at the big picture and look at the ups and downs of, let's say, Belarus entering on Russia's side, actively fighting. Do you think that they would be? No, they would just give a pretext for the West and the weasels over there to do whatever they want. Not that they really need a pretext, but that would be like a blank check to do whatever they want. And everything would say, well, now we have to NATO, we have to close the skies. Now there's going to be no flight zone. Now we're going to bring airplanes over there. Now we're going to bring this kind of systems in Ukraine. Now we're going to bring peacekeeping troops in Ukraine. We're going to do this, we're going to do that for our security, but not for yours. Because Poland cries that, oh my God, it's our security is threatened because of this war and the possibility of entering in, Belarusian army into Ukraine and so on. They're concerned for their safety and security. But Russia should not be concerned that, let's say, Ukraine would have become a NATO member. No, whatsoever. No. Why? Because we are the good guys and you are the bad guys. I mean, that's a very, infantile way of seeing things. But they employ it because the audience is of that kind of level. So they will just buy it and they will use it. I don't think they're that stupid. They are stupid, but not that stupid. But they know the audience is really stupid. Or not the entire audience, but enough of the audience that they can, sway in one way and get support. As you probably know, in a society you don't need not even a majority or a consensus on certain policies. You just need some. And then you point out those sums and you make it like those some are the majority or are the leading voices. Like you have a weasel coming in front of the camera and saying, well, I represent the, trans community, or I represent the, black community, or this community. No, you don't represent shit. You represent yourself because you don't know how and what anybody else in your community thinks. I mean, to think that everybody thinks the same, that's kind of like, I'm not going to use a label, to label you in a certain way. But I represent that. You don't represent shit. If anything, you represent just yourself. The same here. But anyway, the audience is as it is. And the security concerns are, obviously, things could escalate at any moment. Someone makes a big mistake and the other one's really answers to that mistake, and then it's big escalation, and there's a point where there's a point of no return. And we're not there. We're far from that. The point of no return is when one of these countries would just use nuclear weapons, one of the sides, and that's going to be a point of no return. It depends who who's using it and how great the damage is. But it's very possible to just go bye-bye, see you, never. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.